You're listening to Cards to the Moon, a podcast about trading cards from both a collector and investor perspective. We hope you'll stick around for the ride as we take a deep dive into the state of the hobby, share some hot takes, hopefully some useful advice, and fun stories along the way. Hey guys, welcome back to Cards to the Moon. This is episode 107. My name is Clark from 5Card Guys on Instagram and 5cardguys.com. And with me, as usual, is Hyung of Integrity Sports Cards and John, who is Trade You at Recess. All right, off the top, Johnny, you actually sent us a YouTube link earlier today of the trailer promoting the new Netflix series called Full Swing that follows several golfers on the PGA Tour. And I believe the series is done by the same producers who created the F1 series Drive to Survive, which is very popular. So my question to you guys is, do you think this will have any impact on golf cards in general, or even any of the players featured in the show, like Jordan Spieth, Johnny's boy, Rory McIlroy, and even Morikawa, to name a few just off the top of my head? I'll throw it to you, John, first.
Well, first of all, when they first announced the roster, Rory was not on there, and I was pretty sad.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was not. He was not on there. And if you watch the trailer, he comes in right at the end, like last person in. He does. So it was a nice little surprise. I'm really excited about it as a golf fan in general. Obviously, I have my Rory card that I'm pretty excited about. Pump and dump, baby.
What card is it again?
It's the Rory PMG.
Nice. Right. Number 2?
Yeah. Number to 100, I think.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
No, but honestly, I'm obviously kind of half joking because I'm a big fan of Rory. So if I end up watching this and it ends up being amazing, I'll probably want to keep it even more. So we'll see what happens. But
everything has a price. Yeah. Everything has a price.
I think it will have a pretty decent impact on golf. Just excitement around golf. Within sports cards, we'll see. I don't think it's going to be as crazy as F1 was, because F1 had such it had the marketing behind it. It had the product behind it, like Topps Chrome and stuff like that. Whereas, no offense to Upper Deck, but they're not as big in terms of like the marketing and the hype machine that Topps Chrome was. And they don't have a chromium product. So I think they're gonna have to do something to kind of latch onto this hype with the golf Netflix series. So we'll see what happens. But golf product in general right now, I don't know if you guys follow it, but I wanted to get on top of my Rory, I wanted to get like a DeChambeau, I wanted to get a Colin Morikawa, and it's expensive, man. The Morikawa exquisite patch autograph, there was like a BGS 8 that showed up, and I was like, oh yeah, I can probably pick this up for pennies on the dollar. It'll be pretty easy, and it sold for like $18.50, which was it was just pretty surprising. So don't sleep on golf. I think it'll have an impact, but again, I'm pretty sure what somebody's about
new
to say.
Golf, John. If somebody's new to golf, what would they like? What's the target cards? Like baseball, you get First Bowmans, obviously are popular, but what is it? SP Authentic? Is it those SP Authentic autos that are the chase?
I think there's like two. I think there's two main products. I think there's a regular SP, which is a good one. And then there's the SP Game U. So those are two golf specific. And then the exquisite comes out of the, what's that product again? The Goodwin?
Yeah, the Goodwin. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Goodwin
some of those exquisite, like Morikawa exquisite and like the DeChambeau exquisite patch autos and stuff, that comes out of like the Goodwin product. So yeah. We'll see.
I remember I ripped the box of the SP Authentic, and I didn't mind it, actually. It was obviously a little bit overpriced. The ROI definitely wasn't there. Right. But I feel like, golf still doesn't get the love. And especially, during COVID, it was different because you had so many flippers in the game, right? So anything that was remotely on social media or anything that's digital, I think people use that as the scapegoat of, oh, there should be a spike in this, right? Because flippers are looking for that. Where I see this going now is like even F1 last year when they released it, it actually died down from the original 2020 Chrome release of F1 hype. There was like a huge hype before that, and then that F1 kind of like people are interested in watching it, but I don't think it positively impacted, you know, cards, because all the flippers at that time kind of started leaving. That was the transition leaving out. So I think for all these documentaries that are coming out, I think it's great for the sport. I think it's great for people who are hobbyists long term, because it kind of gives you more insight and more intel of, you know, who these players are, and you kind of look at it more of a kind of like long term approach, as opposed to like before, will this, you know, documentary, you know, spike it, because we all had the experience of The Last Dance. So like, and then that's when the flipping started, right? So I feel like, you know, it lost its luster in terms of, will this impact? I think it can. Like there's some things that, you know, obviously help it, but I think in general, you're not going to see that type of spike that you normally get during that COVID bump. So yeah, I would just say, you know, use it as good intel, and, you know, enjoy the sport most importantly, you know, and then maybe that will, you know, cause you to make some moves in the, you know, oh, maybe there's a good buying opportunity in golf, right? And then you look at it as more of a long term, saying, okay, I got to get one of these, you know, you know, patch autos or whatever, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm gonna peel back a bit and obviously give people cautions when I say that it could impact cards. I think very specific cards. I think that's the kind of caveat that people have to be wary of. I think things like exquisite patch auto Colin Morikawa, that is popular not because of the strength of golf, rather than people are collecting the exquisite, and then you're adding on a pretty popular player on top of that. So people are looking for within, you know, like a Naomi Osaka or a Colin Morikawa or, you know, Serena Williams or whoever, like, you know, if there was like a Tony Hawk, it would probably explode to the ceiling. So I think that was the main chase, more so than the golf cards, because if you look at pricing for like Colin Morikawa game used, Tony Finau game used, SP game used, or SP authentic, it's not as lucrative as like an exquisite would be. So I would say, if you are going to target golf to take advantage of any kind of possible bump, it would like undoubtedly have to be like a Tiger Woods card. Even though he's not in it, I think Tiger Woods, just because he's a part of golf, I think he could possibly move.
Sure.
Like a really high end Rory upper deck rookie patch auto, and one of those exquisite products. I think those would be sort of the targets, rather than going after game used or whatnot. But I don't know. I mean, you know, Hyung and I talked about this before. Like the SP game used golf as holding as a wax might not be a bad idea too. Maybe not ripping and trying to sell, but holding as a wax could be a move as well.
Yeah. I like that too, because like I don't know much about golf, to tell you the truth, but like I like what Hyung, you're mentioning about seeing it in the mid to long term perspective, and holding wax, you know, that's you're really thinking mid to long term at that point anyways, right? To see how things play out. I don't know what that is, but what? Oh, holding wax?
Holding wax. It's not in the
Hyung,
what?
Hyung only knows ripping wax.
Yeah.
So, it's like mutual funds.
They're insane.
I know.
Stable and boring, but no, but yeah, you know what? Like, I think you guys nailed it on the head. Like, the days of The Last Dance is over, right? Like, you know, everyone was kind of anticipating for like the last year or the year after Last Dance, like, oh, this is the next one, and then we never really seen it at the hype of The Last Dance. Like, The Last Dance was the pinnacle of the flipping and everything.
It came at
else.
the perfect time, right as COVID was happening. Like, everything was just a perfect storm.
absolutely, absolutely. And so now we're like, okay, that phase is over. But like we talked about this in a previous episode, 2023, I'm expecting more or less the same kind of economic situation. So maybe cards aren't going to be as huge as it was. Well, it definitely won't be as huge as it was during 2020, 2021. During the hobby hype. But I think when the economy does get better, when people start to have a little bit more disposable income, I'm still bullish on sports cards as a hobby, you know what I mean? And I think at that point, more people will come back into the hobby, casual hobbyists, and then they'll discover, oh yeah, there's these golf cards of my favorite player that I like. I like watching golf. And same goes with F1, right? So right. I think you just got to hold if you really believe in the sport. If you're really a fan of the sport, it's a fun way to just kind of be involved, collecting cards of your favorite players, right? So we'll see. We'll see what happens. In the meantime, like in the short term, yeah, just enjoy the series. If you're a fan of golf, it looks, I don't know, Netflix always makes their trailers really great, but it doesn't mean the show's going to be all that interesting, but the trailers look good. So
right.
Speaking of trailers, another one that recently came out, we just touched upon it briefly, is the season 5 trailer of Drive to Survive. And the one interesting thing about season 5, of course, is that Max Verstappen, who did not participate in interviews in past seasons, is participating in season 5. So with that news, do you think, I guess more specifically, and this might be a question for Hyung because he holds a sweet Max Verstappen 1-of-1. Today's the personal pump and dump show. Johnny with his Rory and Hyung with his Max Verstappen 1-of-1.
I don't even think I would be able to sell it because who knows, the cost of it either, right? So it's one of those things where I probably wouldn't even sell it. But
okay, fair.
But yeah, I think with Max, I think it's great for Max collectors because I think he was like, we were talking a bit about this earlier before the show, the recording. We were saying how, he didn't really like the way, he was being represented on the show. So it could potentially give him a voice now, to be able to show a side of him to, his fans or other enthusiasts of like what Max Verstappen is all about. Because it only whatever he was represented in the light, he was the antagonist or the villain in the picture, right? So that's one thing I think is a good thing for him. I think just notoriety in general, like we talk about from a marketing perspective, all these shows get millions of views, and in the long term, it's bringing kind of like light to kind of like that area. So I think it's it only helps, in my opinion, especially when they're bigger stars like the Max Verstappen. I would categorize Max almost like a type A, like same with Lewis Hamilton, same with the Connor McDavid, same with the chase guys that are usually kind of like the dudes, right? So
yeah, I agree.
Yeah. No, it's I think even either if you're hardcore, if you're a casual fan of the series, it's awesome, man. Like, how can you not be happy about Max Verstappen being in the show? Like, I want to watch season 5, because of all the hype that Verstappen has gotten, and I want to get to know him and his personality a lot better and how he relates to the world around him. Like, it's going to be pretty interesting to watch. So I think that's amazing news for F1, amazing news for the sport, the fans, etc., etc. Yeah, so pretty excited. You know what? In an ideal world, because these are all, from a sports card perspective, these are all very niche sports, right?
Yeah.
And you can kind of see what's happening with F1. There was that hype. It was a standalone product. It went crazy. And now it's starting to really slow down. And we mentioned this before, how, most sports cards, the way sports card fans and people that were used to collecting and chasing, it's all about the rookie refresh, right? So every year there's a new crop and there's a new kind of like young, shiny diamond to chase. And it's hard for these niche sports because you don't have like rookie crops and drafts and stuff like that. It's the elite of the elite that go into the sport. So there might be one new rookie, but he's nowhere near Verstappen or Lewis Hamilton. Like, it's going to take him years to become anything close to those guys. So the chase becomes so different. So I think in an ideal world, obviously this is never going to happen, but it would have been amazing for these niche products to all be in like a singular product, like a Topps Chrome world of sports. And there's like golf, tennis, F1, it's all in there. And there's like gold refractors and superfractors of some of the majors. Like that would have been an amazing product, but you know,
you should pitch it.
Yeah.
Pitch it to Topps.
Alas,
Fanatics,
alas, it's Upper Deck and they're all separated and Fanatics is going to.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
The golf has.
It's also, and then tennis
Upper Deck.
is Net Pro. And so Fanatics got some work to do. Hopefully they're listening and they're getting their wallet. They're getting their wallets ready to buy out some companies.
Just buy them out. Yeah, no, those are good points for sure. I was going to say the same thing. Like, I think F1's dropped pretty much since the hype but you know, I like Max Verstappen being on that. Like that adds something new to the series,
for sure.
right? That it's not the same old. So it'll be interesting. We'll see what happens. And you know, I agree. Hyung, it can't hurt Max unless he is a complete a-hole. Then we'll see. but I guess we'll find out soon. I think the series starts pretty soon. So. Okay, the one last thing before we go on, to beat a dead horse about these Netflix shows, Breakpoint. It's a 2-part series, I believe, following young tennis stars, really focusing on the next generation. I'm not personally familiar I'm not as familiar with this next generation. Like I'm still in the Federer, Serena,
Totally.
Djokovic, right? That's where I'm more familiar with, or the tennis I've watched over the years, but this is going to see like who's going to be the next champ, right? So do you think this will help just gauge or just to build up more interest in the sport of tennis, and will that kind of impact tennis cards in the future?
Right.
It's the same thing for me. Like I feel it's kind of like it's good for the hobby, it's good for the sport. Hopefully it represents, sport of tennis well and the organizations that are involved, because I think it's all part of a long-term now kind of like approach where you see, could tennis be more mainstream where, they have a bigger, fan base, and essentially that's going to trickle into, how many people actually invest in tennis. Cause I don't see anybody, like if a friend asks, the first thing they say is like baseball cards or basketball cards, right? Or football cards, right? Like F1, all these tennis, niche, golf, they really don't kind of stand out. So I could see it like I said, long-term approach. I could see it helping just like any other marketing would at this point in this day and age. And now that the flippers are all gone, they're not going to be flipping tennis product, that's for sure. So yeah, I think it's kind of like more of an awareness build and kind of like grow the game. Yeah,
makes sense.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, like this is what we always say: collect what you love. So if you're a collector, and you love tennis, you love golf, you love F1, go for it, right? And I think they'll be much more affordable than when the hobby was just going crazy 2.5 years ago. Right. So good opportunity to collect what you really love, especially if you're a big fan of these niche sports like we're talking about.
Right.
Okay. Good discussion. Let's move on now to hobby headlines. So now that we're in 2023, we're beginning to see some announcements from a couple of the bigger grading companies, specifically PSA and Beckett, BGS, about new prices on their services. And of course, they're both advertising quicker turnarounds. That was a big issue during the hype of the hobby. We talked about it extensively, submitting cards and then getting them over a year later. So now everything looks like, all the grading companies are getting through all their backlog cards. So that's good to see. But I want to quickly go over, some of their service levels that they've announced and see if the lower price point and the quicker turnaround times will make any difference for you in terms of choosing who to send your cards to now. Okay, so let's start with PSA. They have, I think 5 or 6 they introduced, but a couple of them are just for collectors, like members only kind of thing. So I'll skip those. But the ones that regular people can submit, they're calling the first one value submission, which is, and this is all in US prices, $25 per card, max declared value of $4.99. And the turnaround time they're saying is 65 business days. So about 3 months, I guess, 2.5, 3 months. There's a Value Plus, which is the next level up, $40 per card. Max Declared is also $4.99. And then they're saying the turnaround time is 20 business days, so just over a month. And then they have their regular service, which is $75 per card. Max value of $14.99. And then their turnaround time for that service is 10 business days. So out of those three, do you think any of them will have an impact in terms of getting more people to submit their cards to PSA? And would that impact how you submit your cards?
Man, it's well, I sent cards to PSA like last week, so I've already, like, I always say, like, why are we submitting to PSA? And then I end up sending cards. It's just an automatic thing. But like, even when I'm deciding, it's like, that's the first thing I decide is, where do I send it to? And obviously we talked about this I think a couple weeks ago, where BGS was like, where have you been the last 2 years? In the most hype time of all of sports cards, one of the biggest brands just kind of disappeared. I don't even know if they capitalized fully on, the profits that were there at the time, because it felt like they were closed for the last 2 years. Like, I literally haven't sent any cards to BGS in the last 2 years. Right. So it's like, for me, everything filters through PSA of what makes sense. So if it's a higher end card, I sent 4 cards express, $150 a pop, because I'm sending it based on value. Because you got to remember, like, if I'm going to get bumped up and I send a high end card, and let's just say the 150 express is max declared value is 2,500. It's like, if you have a card over 2,500, you might as well go up a service level to just get your stuff on time, right? Because at the end of the day, if you're doing an express service and the value is over 2,500, let's just say, then you could have probably done a quicker service, because you're going to get that upcharge anyways, right? So, like, I think with the value stuff, I think what they're trying to do is regular. They put the way they put their pricing is, they put $75 as the regular service. That's the standard service. 10-day turnaround. That's their money maker. That's what they're looking for. And then it's kind of like, you work backwards from there and say, okay, these two services we could kind of take our time with, and it's more the bulk services. They're cheaper services. And then they try to push the higher end, because it's all price based on price. Right. So I think that's also why it sustains value too. Right. Because a lot of people have to pay the upcharges for a PSA 10, in a big card. So they want premium value, and that kind of feeds into that cycle too. Whereas SGC, it's like, you could get a 10, but they had a Bowman Chrome special that was $9. So like a $5,000 card that's SGC 10, I don't think will hold the same value until the whole pricing structure actually changes with that, because one company, PSA, is using value to grade and to price out what grading costs, and then one company says, which I agree with, it should just be, you're grading the card. That's your job, is to grade the card, right? And it shouldn't cost any more than what you're paying, right? But those are my two go-tos right now, and like, rarely I have a pile for BGS. Like, I'm at the point where, SGC sells just as healthy as BGS right now. So it's like, might as well, get the quick turnaround time with SGC on cards that, autos, for instance, cards that I know that won't PSA 10, for instance, I might send it to SGC. Even a 9.5 auto 10, for half the price might be better than, a PSA 9 with, a great auto. Right. So I think that's my strategy with grading right now. And those are the two companies I've sent out recently. Was, I sent 28 cards out to SGC with the Bowman Chrome special, and then, I have about 90 cards that I'm sending on probably value to PSA, and then I sent 4 express. So if you see the bill, like, it's basically, $3,000-$4,000 worth of grading, and 95% of that is going to PSA still. Right.
And it's primarily because, like, the value add for a PSA graded card is just significantly higher than
Right,
the other.
like it's like if it does 10, because if I look at a card, I'm inspecting it pretty closely now that like grading is a lot more expensive, so I want to be a lot more pickier with like what goes through my filter, especially on the higher end stuff, right? So it's like I won't even send a PSA 9 candidate in some instances because the value doesn't dictate it, but then you know something like a PSA 10 might like shoot the value up, and that difference is worth the kind of like the gamble kind of, right? So
Sure. How about you, John?
Yeah. I think with the new grading pricing, PSA is just going to continue to dominate. People that are into breaking and ripping and trying to be like first to market with a lot of cards, SGC would probably be the move, especially on some base. You know, if you're going to pull like some Julio Rodriguez base, it's probably best to go SGC as quickly as possible and get it to market. So that game, I think, will still be alive and well. But PSA value, liquidity, all of the above is just so strong. So if you have anything significant of a card and you feel it's got a really good chance to gem, I mean, why wouldn't you? Even it's worth the wait. Like, why wouldn't you? Either you send it express to get that to capture that the hype, or if you want to sell it quickly. Or if the prices, you know, pricing on PSA is like double SGC, you could say it's almost like 2.5 over like a min gem BGS. It would be worth it even to wait 60 days. So I think PSA is going to continue to dominate. And even, you know, just to get a quick snapshot of where people are at with PSA, like when I was walking around the show floor at the last big expo,
Right.
Most of the people with cards in their displays, it was PSA, right? You would see BGS in some older slabs because you have some of those, you know, like upper deck exquisite patch autos or things that were graded like years ago. They're all in there. Makes sense. But they were even I would hear conversations multiple times where some kid would come up to the desk and be like, "Hey, would you be interested in like this, or that?" And the vendor would be like, "All right, like, yeah, I might be." And goes, "Oh, they're like SGC's 10 or SGC 9." They're like, "No, not interested. I just want, I want PSA." Like I heard that multiple times from vendors. So like, you know, these guys would just walk away. They're holding like a huge stash of SGC, and the vendors like, I'm not really interested in SGC. Like I prefer PSA. So it just goes to show like all of that stuff, right? So
yeah, maybe it's early. You know what I mean? Like once SGC gets more of their cards out there, you're going to see more of them at card shows. Maybe it's a bit early. And maybe like SGC is still like the a better online play, right? You could get those quickly and then just post it up on eBay or wherever you saw it. So I'm wondering if the PSA, just going back to PSA briefly before we move on and go deeper into the other grading companies, the $25 per card and $40 per card, like it's obviously more to try to capture that base card market, right? Because of the $4.99 max value, and then the $75 card, the regular one, which gets bumped out to $1,500 max. I don't know. For me that kind of seems really expensive. The $75 that tier, regular tier, you know what I mean? Like Express, I understand because it's a higher end card. You pay double, but you get it much more quickly. And you know if you get a PSA 10, the value will shoot up, right? But I don't know if $75 per card is good value for a card that it's worth potentially up to $1,500 only. So
yeah, I agree.
That said, everyone's still going to ship to PSA. I'm sure.
Because think, if you pull a card and like let's just say the value is $2,000, you're like $75, totally worth it. You know, it is what it is. Like you
get upcharged if you get a 10.
Yeah, if you get upcharged if you get a 10. So, but my thing was saying is you're gonna pay the $150 anyways. Might as well do the $150 in the first place. Bump up your
and get it back in a couple of days.
Yeah, and get it back earlier, right? Because like unless you know that it's on that borderline, you know, where the value might not be there. That's what I did. Some of the stuff it was just didn't make sense to send it regular. It was like the value just doesn't dictate. I send it regular, and then they're like, well, this is a $5,000 card, so they're not gonna, you know, they're still gonna charge me whatever service I used, right? So
yeah. Well, I'll say this. One thing I do like, if their turnaround time is correct, the 10 business days for regular and 20 business days for value plus, like that's good to see. Yeah, finally.
Yeah, but I've never seen PSA ever hit their suggested timelines ever. But I will say this: it's moving pretty smoothly right now.
Right.
Like I've submitted, it's all graded. All the stuff is graded. So it's been, we did the express. So this would have been, they would have received it right in the new year, right? So you're still probably 10 business days out for that, I guess.
Okay.
What was express now? Like how many days?
I would say 2 to 5 probably, but
is that is it? I thought that was maybe super express. They have like
right.
And then they have a walk-in, I think.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of people are reporting like the value service, they're getting back in like 15 business days. It's coming pretty quick.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So the value is the way to go?
Yeah. I just don't think PSA has the volume right now, so they're obviously managing. But for the time being, if you wanted to, I think you can take advantage. Go into value service, and I'm pretty sure you get your cards back pretty quick.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. We talked about PSA a lot. Let's go to BGS. Their new pricing structure is as follows. The base level, they're calling base, is $22 per card. But this is interesting. No max declared value on any of these levels. Okay. So the base
is there subgrades?
Which is the right move?
I don't know if there's sorry. Oh, sorry. Yes, these all include subgrades.
Okay.
Yeah. So if without subgrades, it's like take off a couple of dollars for the most part. Okay.
Right.
So the base level, $22 per card, no max declared value. Turnaround is 40 to 60 business days. So
what
there's
the
a range
heck?
there, right? The next level up is standard, $40 per card, no max, and it's 10 to 20 business days, right? And then there's a priority level, $140 per card, no max, 2 to 5 business days. So I guess that's their express.
Right.
So what do you think about these
I think the prices are reasonable, to be honest. It's just I forgot Beckett BGS graded. Like it got to the point. I do like Beckett slabs though. Like, you know what I mean?
Too.
It's like I used to be all about BGS, and then they had my order for like over a year, and then I was like never again, because at least PSA, you had an idea. BGS at one point you're just like I don't think I'm getting my cards back at all.
Yeah,
no
Clark
contact,
had his Trey Young with BGS for like a year and a half or 2 years.
It was brutal. But the pricing seems fair. I think there's like I love Bowman first chromes. I think there's a market for BGS there. Like it's always been BGS dominated. I think SGC tried kind of swooping in there, but I think something's still missing. Like I do like the subgrades. I still look for value with Beckett slabs of True Gem Plus or True Gems that I really, really like, or subgrade 10s. Like 2 subgrade 10s are great, like 9.5 slabs. Like there's stuff like that where I think it's necessary, and I think there is a play with BGS if what they offer they can kind of like handle, right? So
yeah. Johnny hates the 9.5. So.
I hate it. Yeah. I'm kind of with Hyung. Pricing is, it's fine. I think it's the right move for them to not follow PS. They got to give some value. They got to capture people back. I to be honest, I think they should have even gone a bit lower on their pricing. But at the minimum, I think not having max declared value and including subgrades as like almost like a default in their pricing. That's important for people to even consider going back to BGS. So I think all of those are important. So we'll see. This is probably a little test to see how it goes. And if obviously it doesn't go well, they're going to start to strategize around it and make some more moves. So we'll see. Yeah.
I'm with you. I like the pricing. One really bad experience, you mentioned it already, John, my Trey Young, and then that took a year and a half just so I can get a BGS 7.5.
Oh my God. Oh yeah, that's right. Oh my gosh.
I'm like, come on, you made me wait this long for a stupid 7.5. But so that's kind of left a sour taste in my mouth. But I mean, I'm like Hyung too. Like when I got back into the hobby, baseball cards number one. Right. And it was BGS slabs. Like that's what I look for, right? The 9.5, 10 auto. and I like it better in it. So like I hope this does something for Beckett. Like it would be a shame to lose Beckett as one of the primary grading companies, because I like their slabs, and I think competition's good, obviously, and I hope this brings more people back. Like if I rip open a box of Bowman Chrome, I might go to BGS if I submit to groups submitter and I actually get it back within 10 to 20 business days for $40 per card. Yeah, then I'm like, okay, I have a little bit more confidence, but I gotta almost see it first before I really go all the way back to BGS. So I think it's a good start. So we'll see how it goes. I think they just announced this like this past week. So we'll see. Like I think, I can't remember which Instagram account posts the number of cards that are graded month by month. And I think BGS has dropped down to 4th place now. Like it is,
wow,
that's
crazy.
So behind, right? So that's another thing too. If this pricing structure increases the volume, how are they going to handle it, right? So that's going to be something to look out for as well. All right, we talked about SGC as well. We're big fans. Their pricing structure is a bit different. I think they changed this over the holidays, and they go by order size. They guarantee all of their submissions 5 to 10 business days. So they're known, obviously, for their speed, but they charge based on the number of cards you submit at one time. So if you submit 1 to 9 cards, it's going to be about $24 per card. Then the next tier is 10 to 19. That's $22. 20 to 49. That's $20. And then anything 50 above is $18. So
that was decreased. Like Beckett's old pricing, maybe. It's very similar, I find. Yeah.
Interesting.
Whereas tiered.
Yeah. So like, I guess if you do more volume, obviously they'll give you a discount. But 5 to 10 business days turnaround. And no upcharges on cards post 2000. So for modern, I guess, no upcharges. So what do you guys think of that?
Makes sense. That's a great option, I think, especially when they do those like the $9 Bowman Chrome deal.
Right.
Like for instance, looking back and seeing it now, it's like usually hot products like whatever people are breaking or ripping at the time, if you pull a product, that's the big question. Where do I send this to? Because you're like, I want that PSA 10, but I don't want to spend so much money. So perfect example was that Jason Churio, so Jackson's younger brother. I pulled a Atomic in a Brait. I should have sent that off the $9 Bowman, because I would have had that back in time where I could sell it when the market was hot, right? Graded. Right. Whereas like it's still in queue to be graded. Yeah, it might come back a PSA 10, which it won't, because there's like a huge surface line. But like those are the type of like moves that like I feel like SGC can play a really great role for. That is when you need the card quickly, you want it graded because it could potentially 10 in an SGC 10 slab. You're not paying a premium, plus you get it back really quick when the market of that particular card is still hot.
Yeah, I can see that.
Right. Yeah, I don't have much to comment about SGC. I think we've known exactly what they're all about in the last they've probably been the most consistent during the COVID in terms of like handling volume and all of that stuff, and customer service, et cetera, et cetera. So I think SGC is fine on the course that they're on. They're going to continue to capture like that value, speed, sort of criteria. They're not necessarily in the space of like PSA, where if you have a really like a really big card, I doubt you'd still go to SGC at this point. But good for them, man. They're making a lot of money.
I think you mentioned like customer service. I was just thinking about that. SGC by far has the best customer service out of all 3 grading companies. Right. Their process is so smooth. They keep you informed. Their portal has made a huge improvement over the past, so it's
accountability,
super easy.
All that stuff.
Yeah. It's just they made the process so easy, which I give kudos to. So that's why if they were like a Beckett where it was like, you're just pulling your hair out, then I probably wouldn't say like SGC is a good option. But because that all becomes smooth, plus you get the 5 to 10 days, like to me that's the type of service that I think is needed in this, and it plays its role in the hobby, if people kind of look at it that way.
Right.
Yeah, and I was just gonna add, like, unless you have vintage baseball, like SGC is a good reputable brand for that.
100%.
For that,
I
too,
mean,
right?
yeah, the SGC, we talk about it all the time. Like in pre-modern, they were the guys. You know, they were the ones that, you know, understood vintage and, you know, probably have, you know, the most reputable brand from that standpoint in the baseball world too, right? Even those old slabs. But that the old school heads know that, right? And PSA is relatively new. You know, literally a company that blew up in the 90s with the whole Mickey Mantle thing.
Right.
With the
Which, by the way, there was a
1950
new
tops.
one that was found. You guys saw that, right?
I seen
Saw
that.
that.
Raw 250.
And I think it got sent to SGC, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's
There you go.
crazy. Yeah, crazy story. But yeah.
Yeah.
In
No,
a in
I
a
like
card in a card saver without a sleeve. Holy
High
cow!
risk. Okay.
It's only a couple mil.
Yeah. You know what? While you guys were talking, like, you know, like the SGC is, more seen as a value speed play. And I was wondering, like, what will it take for SGC to take that next level where they're more respected as, like, oh, you can get a 10 and it's going to really bump up the value, kind of like a PSA 10 would, right? So hear me out. I think this is what should happen to compete with PSA. You got the service, the excellent service of SGC, get the brand power of BGS. They should just merge and go after PSA, you know, and I think I don't know what else is going to take PSA down at this point.
Right.
Yeah. I think PSA's brand power is so out the roof. And like I said, it's the hurdle. It's the combination of that and the upcharge. Think about it. It's like the upcharge is what's causing. It's not saying that you add that price into, and that's why I sell it for more expensive. It's the perceived value that everybody's saying. Now it's a $5,000 card because they're basically marketing themselves as a standard because they're basing everything on value, right? So it's like they're gonna get the $10,000 card and deem it over $10,000 and charge a $300 or $350 premium, whatever, $10,000 or whatever they charge, right, on particular cards. Because if you send like a 6-figure card to PSA, they're probably making like, you know, thousands of dollars off this, you know, card, right? So it's that perceived value, I think, that PSA plays so well where they are in the market share. Yeah, and it's like now SGC can't basically upcharge. They would get slaughtered in that.
No way.
So it's kind of like PSA solidified that as a brand, right? So it's tough.
Brilliant move by PSA.
Yeah.
Kudos.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I'm sending these slabs to PSA, which I just absolutely like hate that you know, like I'm not happy with PSA, but I still have no option.
You gotta. Yeah.
And that's let's be honest, that's what everybody's gonna do.
Yeah.
If you have any sort of big time card, it's going right to PSA. Like, what are you gonna say, right?
Exactly.
Yep. I guess that's the reality right now. But yeah, we're speaking truth. All right. One last question before we go to the next segment. For this year, you know, with you know, PSA, BGS, SGC coming out relatively strong, is it going to change your buying habits in terms of what cards you get, or are you going to stick with how you have always been shopping cards?
For me, I think the value is on the opposite end of the spectrum now. You go to BGS.
Right.
You know, like the BGS 10s I really like. I think that they have a lot of value because they're tanking too, right? Like BGS 10 where it used to be, it still has that like, whoa, that's a BGS 10. That's better than a PSA 10.
For sure.
But then it's starting to come down at PSA 10 prices on some slabs, right? So I think there's great buying opportunity in general just because Beckett dropped the ball in terms of what they've done in the past couple of years. So I'm always looking for great deals on, you know, Gem Mint pluses, you know, True Gem Plus.
Yeah.
You know, True Gems that are graded for BGS. I think there's fabulous you know, value in that. Same with SGC 10s. At the end of the day, you know, you got to understand why do people use SGC 10s? They do it for the quick flip, the quick turnaround, especially if they get a 10, they get a higher value for it, but they're willing to cut, you know, their profits. They're not there to maximize the SGC 10 profit. They're trying to just flip at that point, and I think that's a great buying opportunity because essentially you're getting a quality graded card for cheaper than a PSA 10 is, right? So
Agree. Yeah, agree. I mean, I flipped some of my 2018 top space cards when I sent it to SGC. I think I sent it with you, Hyung, and then I got it back within a month, and then all sold on
They're
eBay
gone.
very, very quickly. Yeah.
Thank God, because the prices came down ever since that.
It came down a lot. So yeah. All right. I think that's a useful segment. We'll revisit how things are going. Obviously, grading is always going to be a big part of this hobby. It's going to impact values of cards, and everything's always in flux too. So it'll be something we keep an eye on this podcast for sure. Let's just go on to our final segment of this show. We call Pick One. And if you're joining for the first time, this is where each of us puts out 2 cards or 2 players, and then we debate which one we would rather invest in. And I'm going to have Hyung speak a little bit more. He usually leads off this segment. So, you want to start things off?
Yeah, I'll stick with the theme, obviously, of baseball. For me, I was just doing some research and seeing Vladdy prices again. Just maybe pick up a nice Vladdy before spring training hits.
Yeah.
And I was kind of shocked because there were two cards, and I want to segment this off because I think budgets are great. So I put a $500 budget. If I'm spending $500 US,
yep.
What can I get with $500? What's the best Vladdy card I can get? And there's 2 cards that I wanted to pair up because they were floating around that $500 to $600 mark. But I want to see your guys' take because obviously the market dictates pricing. Basically, people who are willing to pay. So obviously the market already spoke what is more valuable. But basically, you got the 2019 Topps Chrome Sapphire Vladimir Guerrero PSA 10. So there's a pop of 245. Okay, versus a 2019 Topps Chrome Purple Refractor number 299 PSA 10, and that's a pop 46. Why are people still paying more for the Sapphire than the Purple? And what would you guys pick?
Right. The Sapphire has always gone more than the Purple, right? So it's probably more of a surprise.
It has.
Now
actually.
it's the same price. Right.
It's the same price now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it probably went as high as 1,500 to 2,000. I don't know if the Purple ever went that high.
Right.
2021 Sapphire hit 2,325.
There you go.
Yeah.
Objectively, I like the Sapphire better in terms of just straight looking at the card. I think the Sapphires are beautiful. But I'm picking the Purple. I like the number. I like the pop count. And I'm a little weary. As much as I really liked Sapphire, I think Sapphire as a product, especially the Acuna year, really elevated the hype of Sapphire. And I think the strength of a lot of Sapphire pricing, like Acuna and Ohtani and Vladdy and Tatis, was off of that hype. But that hype is now wearing off because Sapphire is becoming a pretty, like a heavily printed product. Yeah. And whatnot. So I think that's the lure of Sapphire and that kind of that hype is kind of wearing off. So I'm a little weary of that. So I'm not sure if, 500 is cheap enough. So you can kind of go 50-50 here. But purple and green are one of those colors where they're a part of the OG set. And when you think about them, you're like, oh, I don't like it. But when you see them in person, like I don't like green. I don't know why. I just don't like green. But when you see them in person, you're like, okay, they're pretty nice. Like it's just different. They hit different when you look at them in person. So I think if even in my collection, I love looking at a serial number. And when I see purple in person, I don't like it as an image on eBay screen. But in person, I do like it. So purple for me as a collector.
Yeah. I usually like to see like what the peak is, and then because of the market, everything is down, and I'm like, okay, if the conditions are right, it could go back up.
Right.
But I'm at the point where it's like we're in this borderline recession, and I feel like a lot of these cards won't go back up to those peak points, right? Like there are some cards that might, like the Grail cards that we talked about in the previous episodes, but there are other cards that were just cool during the hobby hype, and I feel like Sapphire is in that category,
Right.
you know, and I don't think it'll ever reach the peaks that it did in 2021. It might go up a little bit because it does look cool, like all the atomic refractor type Sapphire type cards look cool, and I could see if more people come into the hobby, there might be demand for that a little bit higher, but not like the peak. So for me, my general rule is when I'm like, especially with the market the way it is, I'm looking to swap all my non-number cards for number cards. I'm kind of going to fundamentals, right? So, for example, even my Justin Herbert field level silver, I sold it last week at a slight loss because Herbert's, the Chargers are in the playoffs now. So, and I'm like, I want to get rid of my silvers, and try to get a numbered card of Herbert or anyone else. So, that's my logic, and I think in this example, it's a no-brainer for me. I'm going for the number 299 purple.
Nice. I normally don't like the purple, to be honest.
Yeah.
But a year ago, I probably would have said Sapphire. We talked a lot about liquidity and getting rid of it. Now that we're at the bottom again, I'm saying stick to the basics, just like you said. For me, sure. even during this whole time, I was always in the camp of low numbered cards. Rarity, lower pop count, because that's going to protect your investment the best, where you're not going to have the crazy volatility. Especially, you don't want the volatility in the bear market. So for me, I'm going back to numbered cards again, and kind of staying off non-numbered cards. Especially, John mentioned the whole Sapphire deal. 2018 was the first time they released the set of Sapphire, but that was super low print run.
Super
and it
low
was
print.
a huge car. It's huge set too. So it was a big set. Vladdy's year print run doubled or tripled probably from
still
that
fairly
set.
low.
So I
but
think
yeah,
it's still fairly low. But like in general, it's a lot higher than the
Relatively,
Cunha Sapphire, right? So
yeah,
I'm going pot 46 with a purple PSA 10 all day for that. So
right,
yeah.
Sweet.
And this is kind of like on that hobby logic train, right? Like Clark, you kind of touched on it where, you said you like to look at the trends. Like you like to see where that used to be and where it is now and the potential of going it up. But if you look at it in that, I think that's where I'm a bit nervous, is that in the past, let's say Vladdy Sapphire was worth, or Sapphires in general, were worth double purples. And then when you look at it now in terms of that ratio, one would think, oh man, this is a good buying opportunity for Sapphire because it's dollar for dollar now. So it should tell me if it's worth double. I should go in on this. But Sapphire, again, because of the hype and stuff, it's kind of like a hobby logic. Even though pop on purple is lower and it's serial numbered, hobby logic told us that Sapphire is the product to chase, right? And that could change. That could, like this year coming and in the future, if that changes, that ratio, what used to be double of purple is no longer existing. And then you're kind of left holding a bag, right? So I think that's what worries me about Sapphire. So I think the purple would be maybe a little bit less spectacular and boring, but I think it's a safer choice.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah.
All right, good one, Johnny. Your turn.
All right, so I got two choices that are completely unrelated, but they're under the I guess the what am I trying to say? I'm trying to look at it from like the number 2 spot. So we're going to go with a theme of number 2 spot. So here we go. Okay. It's going to, and you'll know once I say it. So more likely to take back the number 2 spot at any point in the future. Panini Select, because now I think people will agree they're in the number 3 or number 4 behind like Prism and Optic, or BGS Grading, who are number 3, arguably behind SGC. So more likely to take back the number 2 spot at any point in the future, Panini Select or BGS Grading.
Okay, it's kind of easy for me because I always thought the Select was still number 2, right? So
I guess you could argue that. That's true.
They're probably more even than I think, but because I think Select is still, and I'm with you, John, when we talk about our dislike for Select, in recent years, I'm still kind of in that camp where, I hope Panini, while they have the license, still makes some improvement in the Select set. But I still think it holds value over Optic. I think Optic's kind of dropped too as well. So Select, it just retains number 2 for me. Although I do desperately want BGS to take number 2 from SGC because, like we said in the earlier segment, I love the BGS slabs.
Yeah, I might be similar where I want BGS to be that number 2, but will they?
I know.
And for me, it's like I still believe, like, if you look at one of the best Luka cards, they're in Select actually. I think like any courtside silver or courtside, Luka in 2018 is a huge card. So for me, I like Select. I think they have some big cards on the flip side. They're not all. I think it was after the whole fact that when we were like, Select is all awesome, and then it literally that year with Anthony Edwards and everything, it was so disappointing, right? Even 2019 was a great set, and we're enjoying the Select. I really like the courtside design in 2019 as well. So like they have the history. BGS has obviously the longer history compared to Panini in general. So I think Select already has that spot, and I think BGS is going to struggle to get to that spot, that number 2 spot, right? So I'm going to say BGS has a lot to work. So I'm going to say Select to more likely take that number 2 spot.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point, Clark. Some people might argue that Select is still number 2, so it might be a horrible comparison. But I'm going to put Select at number 3 or number 4. Okay. I'm pretty disappointed in Select. I personally think it's going to be very difficult for both of these scenarios to take back the number 2. To be honest, I'm not that confident in Select. I think Panini did a lot of damage to that product, and it's going to be really hard to turn it back. Like, I don't know how you can go from printing it a lot to not printing it a lot and making it like an SB product. Like, I don't think that's going to happen. So I don't see anything that can maneuver Select to come back other than just Hobby Logic people just all of a sudden liking it again. So I don't like that. I don't like Select. I'm going to go with BGS. I think BGS is in a very difficult spot. I don't believe what they're doing now with just pricing and some of the little marketing tactics and the strategies that they're deploying. I don't think it's enough to gain consumer confidence back into spending money on them and using our expensive cards or our beloved collections to go into BGS. Like, I think it's going to be difficult, but I think if they go guns blazing or scorched earth and really change the course of their image, like, for me, get rid of the 9.5 gems. Like, I think I think showing the subgrades is great. I think collectors do want to see that, or some sort of semblance of, like, give me a report, kind of like tag grading. Give me, like, I want to see why my grade got what it did. So I like subgrades. Some people are obviously going to argue against that completely. But I don't think the grading scale is fine too, but I think the grading visual of 9.5, I think that's number 1. They got to just completely bite the bullet and flip and go to a 10. And if they want to keep the black 10 and they want to keep the subgrades, I don't know, like, it sounds really cheesy, but go to like a 10, go to a 10 plus, 10 is a 10. And then like a flawless is like a 10 plus or a 10 diamond. I don't know. But, for me, get rid of the 9.5 and probably get rid of, do an overhaul on the slab. And I know they came out with the previous one, which was kind of a joke, but I think if they do a really good job of coming out with a brand new slab, and like, I don't think they'll do the 10s, but that's maybe me wishing. But again, I think if they go scorched earth and they really switch it up, I think they have a chance to come back. So I'm going to go BGS.
Okay. Cool. I feel like Johnny just brought this pick 1 just so he could
make that point
that he hates 9.5s on BGS.
And that I hate Select.
It's all good. We need to rant every once in a while. Yeah. All right. Let's end off this show with my pick 1. So on one side, this is a $300 budget. Ronald Acuna's 2018 Bowman Chrome rookie autograph card. All right. Not his first Bowman, but his 2018 Bowman Chrome rookie auto. BGS 9.5. 10, speaking of BGS. And then another BGS 9.5 10 graded card. Carlos Correa's, 2013 Bowman Chrome Prospect as base auto, also going for about $300 now. And reason why I bring this up is Carlos Correa, like that story is bonkers,
Crazy.
Right? Like, has this
like
ever
$1 trillion
happened?
worth of deals that just fell through.
This is insane.
You know, it's like
So-
$860 million of deals that
Right.
fell through.
All because of his surgically repaired right ankle, apparently. So I want to put this up. Is this scaring you at all? Like, you know, I wanted to put a not Ronald Acuña's best autograph card compared to Carlos Correa's first Bowman base auto.
I think for me, Correa is interesting because his numbers won't show you the whole story of the type of player he is. So for me, I think he's super underrated one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not too concerned. Well, it did kind of concern me the fact that, you know, San Fran literally was out and then it was like a new deal and then it was like, wait a minute, out. And then now
Right.
we're back to the Twins, right? After, you know, the Mets kind of pulled the plug. So for me, that does concern me. But just as Acuña's knee concerns me as well, and we're talking about Acuña's Bowman Chrome rookie auto, which I think takes number 3 spot in terms of any autos for any type of players. So I always see the kind of like the Bowman First Chrome is obviously everybody's chase, and then you have Topps Chrome usually as the rookie auto, and then you have your Bowman Chrome. So it's kind of like Acuña's third desired, I guess, auto card as opposed to Carlos Correa's first. So for me, I'm basing it on value itself for $300. You know what? I think Carlos Correa's card and the Bowman Chrome Acuña is definitely cheap. Like that's crazy that it's gone that low, but I like the value in Correa at $300.
Okay. Correa. John?
I agree with Hyung's assessment. I think there is something, obviously, in the comparison of Ronald Acuña, not his main rookie auto, versus Carlos Correa's main rookie auto. I think that right away, immediately by default, will probably point you towards Correa. And I agree with Hyung that he's very underrated, and I think the value is there. And I could see a lot of people saying like this is the pick. Like you're gonna go with the value and there's potential here. I'm going the other way though, because number one, I'm not a fan of Correa. So like even let's say both these cards were to go to $100, at least I have a Ronald Acuña that I can enjoy. So from a collector standpoint, I'm gonna go after the guy that I like. And to be honest, from what I know of Correa, I don't really think he moves the needle, or he can move the needle. And as much as Ronald Acuña has come down and it's not his main, Ronald Acuña can move the needle, and he has the potential to come back, roaring back, and his prices being volatile again. So I think as much as there is value in Correa and Ronald Acuña not being the main rookie card, I still, for me as a collector, I want that card over the two. And I think Acuña still has some volatility left in him for his card prices to spike. So Acuña for me.
Okay. I'm going with Acuña because his ankle scares me. I have never seen something like this happen before. Apparently, I'm just reading the headlines. A day ago, Correa deal is finalized after shortstop finally he passes the physical. So he will play with the Twins. 6 years, $200 million contract. Still a big chunk of money. Mm-hmm. I hope he proves me wrong. I hope his ankle is fine. But it's just kind of really weird that the Mets and the Giants would just kind of back out. Right. So the only thing that made me hesitate is I forgot about Acuña's knee, which Hyung reminded me of. So hopefully he doesn't damage that. He doesn't damage his knee either. So anyway, I'm going with Acuña in this case. All right. Well, once again, thank you so much for tuning into the podcast. We come out with a new episode every Tuesday and every other Friday. If you like this episode, we really appreciate you if you gave us 5 stars wherever you listen to your podcast, and subscribe and share this show with your friends. All right. See you next week. Bye. Hey, thanks for listening to Cards to the Moon. We'd really appreciate you subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also connect with each of us on Instagram at 5cardguys, or you can follow Hyung at Integrity Sports Cards, or John at TradeU at Recess. You can also check us out at 5cardguys.com. Thanks again, and hope to connect soon.